Emergency crews are on the scene of an unstable building. This is all happening on East 42nd Street near Grand Central Terminal in Midtown Manhattan. Here's what we know. Firefighters responded to a call about bricks falling from a former office building that is being converted into luxury rental units. Construction workers say at least 2 structural support beams have begun to buckle. You can see the beams here. They're on the 21st floor. They appear there to be bent, and that is what's sparking concerns of a possible collapse. Take a listen to the call between first responders.
We're operating in 235 East 42. This building is a 34-story, 75 by 100 construction. We have columns partially down on 21 and 22, and we have floors sagging between 21 and 26.
Right now, we are awaiting an update from city officials. For now, a total of 9 buildings in the surrounding area have been evacuated. We have with us NBC News national law enforcement and intelligence correspondent Tom Winter now. So, Tom, we understand that Mayor Mamdani is on the way, but walk us through this situation, the kind of danger it poses. Is this a building that is on the verge of potential collapse, or perhaps some floors of that structure?
Well, at that height, Vicki, it's a great question, because if a couple of floors go between 21 and 26, as we just heard from the radio transmissions, it's kind of a moot point. Okay. That building would most likely collapse in some form. So, yes, there is definitely a degree of concern. They are not racing anybody in or out of there anymore, but obviously there is an effort here to quickly assess the situation and figure out what to do. You want to quickly assess it, but in order to do that, it's going to take time. It's not like you really want to send a lot of people up there right now to the 21st floor and say, what's going on here in a potentially dangerous situation? We know from the Department of Building Records that we've reviewed that this morning the site safety manager contacted the Department of Buildings, which oversees construction and just the better general operation of buildings and permitting here in New York City, and said on the 21st floor that there were a number of, you're looking at those structural beams there. That's right near the window. So it's the beam right near the window that's of most concern, because you'll see that the glass there in that window does not appear to be touched, does not appear to be any sort of sagging there. That's the outer curtain wall system. So those steel beams that we see that are bent, like somebody mentioned, like a bent cigarette, those are the structural supports for that outer multiple beams. Than 2. And you're looking at, in the foreground there, kind of those thinner pieces of metal. Those would be for the interior walls. Okay. So that's indicating to us that this sagging is going beyond just that corner, that this is something that is impacting certainly a significant portion of that floor. And based on the fire transmission, it appears that it's multiple floors where this sagging is occurring. So that is very concerning. If you talk to building experts, and having reviewed this, and it's part of the job that I have here, which is understanding first responder actions to something like this and looking at other buildings that have had problems in the past, this is certainly concerning. This is what's called an office building conversion. This is the former headquarters of Pfizer, now being converted, as we're seeing in many buildings here in New York City, office buildings that don't have kind of the same appeal, because we have these beautiful brand new glass buildings in other parts of the city that have been built. Some of these older office buildings are being converted to apartments or condominiums. In that conversion process, we're seeing a lot of engineering being done, because you need to get light into the center of the building. So some of these buildings are actually having whole interior portions being taken away. Wow. Or in the case of this building, amenities are being added, such as a pool on the roof. So was that pool completed yesterday when those heavy rains came in? Is that adding weight to the building that wasn't anticipated? Does it have to do with something else entirely? Those are all questions that we have, and presumably the city's engineers. So the city has their engineers. There's an architectural firm, Gensler, that's associated with this building. They've got their own structural engineers, and they'll have consultants. And they'll have half the city's engineers, I'm joking, working on this here in Shore.
This automatically jumps to the top of the priority list, Tom. Let's talk about the 9 other buildings, if you know. I mean, this is very close to where we are here at 30 Rock. A lot of other buildings in the area have been also evacuated, is my understanding, as the mayor is headed to this building? Yeah,
so in that general area, they have to evacuate those buildings, so they have a sense of what's going on here. And so they're aware of the damage that we can plainly see there on television. You don't need to be me or a structural engineer to tell you that this building's got some problems. The question is, what is the overall amount of the problems that they're dealing with? Is that there's several buildings that are associated with this project. One of the buildings they were adding height to, according to public records and public reports. This particular building did not appear to be having a lot of height added to it, just those amenities that I mentioned. Again, we're still trying to get more public records
Sure.
to determine that. But the other buildings around it, they've got to be concerned if this building were to fall or to lean, what damage could be done.
Yeah, the
And
area of
course,
impact.
it's not just whether or not, let's just make this as simple as possible, whether one of these buildings falls onto another one. Okay, if that's the case, then you might have additional structures that are impacted beyond just those 1 or 2, 3, 4 buildings, and you still got to get people out safely. So what the fire department does is they just say, we're going to err on the side of caution. Let's get everybody out of these buildings, and then we'll sort it out with the engineers and figure out what we're actually dealing with.
It makes sense. Hopefully they get this squared away soon.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.